What did you find? Hendina winces as the rest of the story comes tumbling out of her. I've been keeping an eye on the Drake's Nest east of town, at Direford Crossing. The beast stayed just long enough to lay a clutch and moved on. Thank the Sky Mother. It wasn't a full-grown dragon. She looks at her bandaged arm and grimaces. Fresh eggs are much more useful than the ones that get passed between merchants or left in nests for weeks or more. And that clutch looked to be at its peak. Though I'd see about getting an egg, but I didn't realise so many of them had already hatched. Or that young worms were so territorial. I could get an egg for you. She keeps her gaze steady, but you see hope kindling in her eyes and twitching at the corner of her mouth. I sure hope you're not leading me on. I don't think I could stand getting burned again. She bites her lip. If you really mean to go after it, I'd certainly pay you. Just remember, big as they are, dragon eggs are fragile, and there's a lot more I can do with a whole one. Tell me about the dragon egg. It's in a nest. It's in a nest is perched in a cliff on the east end of Direford Crossing. That's out in the wilds just east of here. I'm sure there are others elsewhere, but the one at Direford Crossing is just the age I need. If you head out that way, be careful. The place was crawling with worms when I went out there, and I can't imagine they've gone anywhere else. How did you get burned? She turns her face to the ground. By the flame, how bad does it look? Terrible, I know it. It looks like it hurts. Relax, it's not that bad. I'm surprised you'd go out in public like that. Who cares how it looks? What matters is that you're okay. I just wanted to know what happened. Who cares how it looks? Yeah. Suppose you're right. Good thing I know my poultices. What's wrong with the roads? A noise of disgust rattles in her throat. Brigands, looters, you name it. The gods may be hollowing out our babies, but it's grown folk that's rubbing out the rest of us. People are scrambling to Defiance Bay because they hear there's healthy births there, and all those refugees in abandoned homes attract desperate sorts like flies on dog shit. Show me your wares. Grieving mother. This middle-aged peasant woman is dressed in a brown leather cloth draped down to her knees. Her hands are working at separating stringy colourless vegetables in a pile before her, stripping the heads off the long fibrous stems with a paring knife. She discards the stems one by one, placing the heads of the vegetables in a small cradle-like basket in front of her. She doesn't greet you as you approach. You're not sure she even knows you're there. Excuse me? The woman doesn't respond. She keeps stripping the heads off the vegetables at a steady rhythm. She may be deaf. There's no indication she hears you. Study the woman. At first glance, she seems to be nothing more than a middle-aged woman, unremarkable, maybe less stern than most, who seems more focused on the weaving in her lap than her surroundings. Yet, you suddenly notice she's not stripping the vegetables before her any longer. She's weaving, and the vegetable pots are now missing. She still pays you no mind, her brown locks torn and snagged from lack of washing. Like many of the townsfolk you've seen, there is a strange blur to her. Even the motions of her hands seem to be playing with the threads of the lack of colour, in a shape that lacks interest. It may be that she is half-minded or deaf, but something feels wrong as you watch her knitting takes on an odd cadence. And you have a terrible suspicion that something lurks beneath what your eyes are showing you. Her brown hair is long, almost impossibly to the length of her hands, and you follow the streams of her locks downward. The hairs become long and black, splitting off into the threads of black and silver and wrapping around her hands. She is forming a soul cradle with her threads, braiding a net in front of you, each finger long and sharp like a series of knitting needles, almost hypnotic. The silver and black strands of her hair weave together with silver predominating as highlight, the black shadowing it. Oh, goodness sakes. And suddenly you are calm. You are on a plateau, almost the height of the tower, several stories high. The plateau is like a table lying beneath a clear sky, and beneath the plateau, surrounding it in all directions, a forest, hazy with mist, although whether it is actual mist or distance or a recollection. Resting in the curve of a natural arc above you is great copper bell, half again the size of a man, hanging at attention, as if looking down on you and their event unfolding before you. The plateau has soaked in the sun, and the rock beneath you is rough and warm. The sky forms a cradle around you. You feel different, not disembodied, but you feel your body, your physical contours have changed along with the surroundings. And you hear a soft series of chimes like wind chimes. At the sound, the scene gains colour and texture, as if the sound is beckoning you gently forth, filling your senses and thoughts like mist rolling softly into sealed chamber. And focus on the chimes. The chime coaxes you deeper into the memory, and you're certain it is a memory, a warm one. You are on the stone of the plateau, your knees on the warm texture of the ground, silver white shimmering like Adra. The plateau is formed of it, glistening in the sun. You can feel the heat on your skin, your wrists and your hands. Your hands are in motion, weaving not thread, but gathering, tenderly moving along the first movements of Barath's wheel. Your hands are wet, your hands are upon the flesh of a newborn child, and you can feel the crowning of a tiny head turning in your grip, its head slick wet from the womb. The hand you are wearing, inhabiting, have done this many times, and they are practiced and confident. You can feel distant pains in your own head as the head emerges, a stream of fluid from the womb helping the newborn slide forth, and a woman laboured, breathing, crying out. Focus on the child, the movement of your hands. As your hands move, you hear the sound of chimes clear cutting through the haze of memory. You cannot see where they are coming from, but they are close, and they are meant as comfort. Of that you are certain. Draw the child forth, and coaxed by your hands, every movement causing the chimes to sound again, almost eagerly the child comes forth, and as it does, your hands are in motion, weaving, moving along the length of the soft wet rope. Know an umbilical cord from the legs of the naked woman before you. You are holding a small child, still wet from the womb before you. The child cries out, its cry full of life, full of soul, the ringing of chimes echoing in its thoughts, filling it with its welcome. The soul is blurred at the edges, as if you are viewing a soul. From within a soul, but it is there. It is alive. The woman before you is weeping, and at her first cry, her hands reached out for it. Surrender the child. You surrender the child to her, something you have done many times before, and as your hands move, the chimes echo the movement, and you realise the chimes are hanging from the cords of your wrists. And where once they echoed in the memory, they are now echoing in the child's mind as well. The chimes are intended to welcome the child, to be its first gentle greeting into the world, a soothing sound guided by the tender motions of your wrists. You are helping to weave its thoughts, its perceptions, and the experience. The woman laughs with a ragged joy, laughing from a parched throat. Her emotion seems soothed, but the physical demands of labour have left her exhausted. But the child is here, the child is safe, and all atop the plateau is peaceful, calm, distant, flattening out as the memory persists. Slowly pull back, retreat from that memory. With effort, the scene bleeds of colour, and your mind becomes your own again. There is no pull, no anchor, yet the sound of the chimes remains. As they existed in the memory, they sound here as well, and they are hanging from woven braids on the wrists of the woman before you. Even your head is spinning from the touch of her mind, and sound of the chimes on her wrists is sharp and clear, as if coaxing you back to the real world. The woman still sits before you, but she is nothing like what you saw before. She is wearing black shredded garments that drape over her form like streamers. Her hair is streaks of black and run through with silver. Her age is almost impossible to tell. She simply feels old, like a crumbled watchtower. As she lifts her head to face you, you see that her hair is draped across the front of her face like a veil. Grieving mother. What you first saw of her was a mental glamour of some sort, unconscious, and you realise what you see is what the world sees, and you are perhaps the first to see her true self. Still, you don't sense a threat in the realisation. If anything, you feel a sense of relief from the figure. You can hear her thoughts, and she is glad to at last see you. What did you do to me?
I am seen, but the eyes of others do not remember. You were the first to see me as I am, the call stripped aside.
There is a light touch on your mind, a caress, and her left hand mirrors the motion of the touch, reaching up to the air between you. You hear the chime on her wrist sound softly. Her hand moves as if pantomiming, resting on your cheek at a distance, and she speaks softly and slowly.
Your memories. A cadence of wheels on a caravan track. Fever. Questions by running water. Violence in a night's campfire, arrows in the dark, and fleeing. Falling rock and cracking stone, and a storm. The storm. The storm that brushed you. Did its screaming wake you from your mind's cradle? Your memory of it is painful. Its cry is difficult to ignore. It's like a child. Many children crying out.
I encountered a bioac, yes, and it did something to me. We were attacked in the woods as we were on our way to Guldir Vale. Be cautious what you read in my mind without my leave. What happened between us on that plateau memory we shared. Her hand withdraws shyly, a chime sounding softly once again. The woman stands uncertainly, as if she has been sitting for some time, or is too weak to bear her own weight. You notice cheekbones are tight, her face gaunt, yet her stance is weak. She seems determined to stand before you.
You are able to see me.
It is almost a question. You suddenly realise she doesn't seem to know what you saw when you looked at her, the image on the plateau, yet the image was so clear, so sharp, you're surprised she didn't feel you there.
See me as a rare gift, a watcher's gift.
I've never been able to do that with a living person except with you.
So many questions, thoughts, whirling like storm winds. That storm still roars through you, deep beneath your thoughts, yet muted and secret, like an underground river. I cannot tell if it is carving new channels, or eroding what keeps your true strength buried. The fact that you could hear it at all, survive it, is something few have ever done. Your power will grow stronger with each soul you touch, as it allowed you to reach out to mine.
There is a silence, and although it seems to last for but a heartbeat, in your thoughts it stretches out between the two of you like a pull between your minds. You blink, take a breath, and then you realise